This is part 3 of North Carolina versus Morrison, Court of Appeals. Defendant called Cisneros 8 times while there. During one of those phone calls, defendant told Cisneros to hurry up and move Mitchell's car from in front of Santa Maria's house. Defendant then returned home. Later that afternoon, defendant went to go play soccer to relieve his stress. After that, defendant purchased each and degreaser to clean his truck. Consistent with the state evidence, defendant testified he saw police outside his house when he went to return home, so he drove to his mother's home instead. The next day, Cisneros allegedly tried to convince defendant to lie to the police about what had happened and tell them defendant had driven Cisneros straight home from the bar. Defendant refused, saying, "If I was to tell that story, that there is going to say that I had all guilt on me, that I was the only one there." Later that day, defendant met with Cisneros and Cisneros' mother at a Goodwill, and Cisneros again tried to convince defendant to lie to the police. According to defendant, Cisneros' mother pointed out that if defendant didn't want to talk to police at any point, then it's probably best if we, defendant and Cisneros, go to Mexico. Defendant returned to his mother's home and asked his father to bring him a change of clothes and the shoes Cisneros had borrowed from him. Defendant testified he earned the shoes because there was UD on them and he was worried the police would be able to get DNA to prove that they're my shoes. Defendant agreed to go to Mexico with Cisneros later that day. He testified he did not tell either of his parents he was going to Mexico. He allegedly told his father he was going out of state and told his mother he was going to Texas. Defendant's mother drove defendant and Cisneros to Texas. The men took a taxi to the border and crossed into Mexico. In September, defendant learned there was a warrant out for his arrest. Defendant retained a lawyer and flew back to North Carolina to turn himself in. Outside the presence of the jury, defense counsel presented testimony from Giovanni Quiterio-Olmedo, defendant's father, regarding a conversation which took place between Quiterio-Olmedo and Cisneros shortly after the events at issue. On voir dire, Quiterio-Olmedo testified Cisneros told him defendant was not involved. Defense counsel, "Did you ask where defendant was?" Quiterio-Olmedo said, "It's first of all, Cisneros started telling me, kept saying that defendant was not involved. I did it because Mitchell was choking defendant." The state and Cisneros told defendant was not involved and did it because Mitchell was choking him. Quiterio-Olmedo, yes. The state, so Cisneros had committed a murder. Quiterio-Olmedo, that's what he confessed to me in my house. Defense counsel sought to admit this testimony under Rule 804b3 of the North Carolina Rules of Evidence. The trial court determined the testimony was not admissible because Cisneros was not unavailable as a witness and there was insufficient evidence of corroborating circumstances as to the trustworthiness of the statement. At the close of all evidence, defense counsel renounced the motion to dismiss. The trial court denied the renewed motion on February 2024. The jury returned verdicts finding defendant guilty of first-degree murder on the basis of felony murder and guilty of concealing unnatural death by secretly burying a human. That same day, the trial court entered judgments in accordance with the verdict. On 6 February 2024, defendant timely provided notice of appeal. The issues on appeal are whether the trial court erred by excluding Giovanni Quiterio-Olmedo's testimony that Kevin Patricio Cisneros told him defendant was not involved and denying defendant's motion to dismiss. Analysis. Hearsay. Defendant argues the trial court incorrectly determined Cisneros' statement was not admissible under Rule 804b3. Specifically, defendant argues Cisneros was unavailable as a witness for the purpose of Rule 804, and there was evidence of corroborating circumstances indicating the trustworthiness of Cisneros' statements to support its admission under Rule 804b3. Under Rule 804b3, if a declarant is unavailable as a witness, his statement may nonetheless be admissible at trial. At the time of its making, the statement so far tended to subject him to civil or criminal liability that a reasonable man in his position would not have made the statement unless he believed it to be true. NC Gen Sat GC Rule 804b3 2023. However, a statement tending to expose the declarant to criminal liability is not admissible in a criminal case unless corroborating circumstances clearly indicate the trustworthiness of the statement. We review a trial court decision whether to admit a statement. Rule 804b3 for abuse of discretion. See State v. Dewberry 166 NC App 177183600 SE 2nd 866870 2004. Here, the trial court concluded Cisneros' statement was inadmissible both because he was not unavailable as a witness, and two, there is insufficient evidence of corroborating circumstances clearly indicating the trustworthiness of the statement for the purposes of Rule 804b3. Unavailability as a witness includes situations in which the declarant is absent from the hearing and the proponent of his statement has been unable to procure his attendance by process or other means. NC Gen Sat 8C1 Rule 804A 2023. To review a trial court's determination that a witness is unavailable, our court considers whether the trial court findings of fact related to the witness unavailability were supported by the evidence and in turn supported in its conclusions of law. State versus Allen 265 NC App 180 or 480 484 828 SC 2nd 562 566 2019, quoting State v. Clontz 254 NC App 95114 802 2nd E 2nd 531 545 2017. In this case, sub judice, the trial court determined Cisneros was not unavailable as a witness for the purposes of Rule 804b because Cisneros' absence was due to the procurement or wrongdoing of the proponent of his statement for the purpose of preventing the witness from attending or testifying. The trial court finds Cisneros' absence was due to defendant and his family's helping Cisneros flee to Mexico. Please stay tuned for our next part in this series.